Hefty, chesty, testy, zesty's pretty good.
Hi, this is Alina, and you're listening to Your PharmD Bestie. So we have a very special guest today. This is one of my co-residents in the acute care track, Lydia. I'll have her introduce herself in more depth in just a bit, but when I first started this podcast, I didn't really tell a lot of people about it, just because it was like a really new thing for me, and I wasn't sure like where it was going to end up. But Lydia was one of the first few people that I told in our class, and she was very supportive about it and just very excited about it. So I wanted to invite her as a guest to talk about her experiences. And on today's episode, we want to focus on just a reflection on this past quarter. So we just finished our first quarter about like 3 months into residency. And so we'll talk about some of the challenges we face and also the wins and just, yeah, like what we look forward to this upcoming year.
Hi, I'm Lydia.
So my special guest needs some help here, so I'll introduce her. This is Lydia Shen. She is from Philly.
Yeah.
She went to University of Pittsburgh, and she majored in, I think it was global, something with global.
Yeah.
Correct me, supplement.
I did. It's like a 2+4 like schooling thing. So it was 2 years undergrad, 4 years of pharmacy school, all within the same university. And then, so you graduate with a PharmD at the end of it. Mm-hmm. But you can have different areas of concentration. And so I had two. One was in global health, which is like underserved populations, like how to deal with equity and inequity within like healthcare. And then the other one was like a pharmacotherapy scholars, which is like, I describe it like a boot camp for residency that you do in your like last year of pharmacy school.
Is that why you're so prepared?
I don't know that prepared is the right word for it, but they have you do like extra classes on top of like rotation year, and then they have like a process for doing like research and stuff so you can present at mid-year.
Okay.
So it kind of gives you, it's like a CV booster basically, which is nice.
Interesting. To give context, I think that in our class, like Lydia's well known for how knowledgeable she is in different areas. She might not think so, but like I personally, like she gives off that vibe, and so I was just curious. But
I got pravastatin and prazosin mixed up.
You don't need to let the whole world know that. Like,
it's eating at my soul. I feel so bad.
Look, she's not the first one who's made that mistake, but my statement still stands. I think that she's well qualified, and there's a reason why she's at this residency program. Do you want to talk a little bit about like your clinical interests? I know you mentioned a little bit about like the different concentrations that you had in undergrad / pharmacy school, but there are specific interests that you came in with.
Yes. I've been saying that my 3 clinical interests are in women's health, specifically with like OB-GYN, and behavioral health, the psych, and then critical care, which is kind of out of left field. But those are some of the rotations I had in my like last year of pharmacy school. So I feel like I just tried it and was interested.
So you've had a crit care rotation?
I have. Oh. I was in like a small hospital back in Pennsylvania. So I was in their MICU. We probably had a total of maximum 10 beds, but during the time that I was there, we had maybe like 8 patients.
Okay. It's smaller team maybe, but I feel like it'll still give you a good experience.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, kind of going back to the main topic. So we finished 3 months of residency, about 2.5, I guess. I can definitely talk about my impressions of those first 3 months, but kind of want to hear from you first. And especially since you're out of state, so you moved quite a long way from here, from where you were to come here. And I expect that there were different expectations that maybe you had when you first came in, and like what's actually happening now. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like when I was applying for different residencies, I like was like willing to go anywhere. I'm from the East Coast, so I'm from Philly, but I really was willing to go anywhere. I said, as long as it like touches the water and is like a little liberal, I'll go there. So you might have to cut that.
California.
So yeah, I was like, anywhere where it has the sun would be nice. Just a change of scenery. So yeah, I feel like my expectations of California were like, I just want more sun, more sunshine, good weather. And yeah, I feel like, I mean, that is true. That has happened.
Okay. So that's your impression of California.
Yeah.
I would say SAC is probably a little different than that. It was hot. But yeah. But what about like the residency program itself?
I feel like coming into residency, I was really excited. It's like new opportunities, new people, which can be scary, but I feel like I already made like the big step of moving out, and that's like a whole other thing as to like, I came kind of unprepared. I just drove from PA, got in a car accident in Missouri, drove the car anyways, all the way across state, had to get a rental car, didn't have a place to stay at first, so I stayed at a hotel, found a Craigslist roommate, essentially. It was on roomies.com, and moved in all within the span of like a week. So I feel like I really sped run the logistics of California. And so I was like, don't have time to think about anything else. Just get basic necessities, a place to live, a roof over my head. You know, like.
No, for sure. There was actually like another episode that I filmed, and I briefly mentioned about a co-resident who like moved across the country basically. It's like referring to you obviously, but like, yeah, I think listeners would love to hear that story, but that we can save that.
The abbreviated version.
Yeah. But okay, so recap, you're very excited. Obviously, like, had to speedrun some stuff. It wasn't exactly like the way you planned it to be. We started with a relatively long orientation for residency. It was like about 6 weeks, I think. And then we like jumped into our first rotation. We just finished our second one. So from that start during orientation till now, were there like any parts that really struck you as maybe like culture shock even, or like any general remarks on the whole experience?
I feel like the big thing I've been telling people is like, oh, I've been having little culture shocks since getting here, even though it's like within the same country. Obviously you can't have as much of a culture shock between East and West Coast, but I think the first thing I commented on was that like people in California are just like too nice. It's to the point where I was like, this is odd, like little I just wasn't ready to have like elevator talk with like random people in the middle of the day.
That's fair.
Or like I was in a hotel for a couple of days, just like before I could find a place to live, and that I think I was bringing things in from the car to my hotel room, and the front desk person said hi to me every time. It took me 5 minutes to like bring my stuff up, back down. I think I made the trip maybe like 5 to 7 times, and he said hi every time. I don't know. Oh, hi.
And you like had what was it? What's your impression of Trader Joe's actually?
Oh, that's like a stereotype though, that like Trader Joe's has the friendliest cashiers.
But like I feel like they low-key do.
I believe that because I went in, I was so prepared because I already knew this information beforehand.
Okay.
And I don't normally shop at Trader Joe's. Mm-hmm. So I went in like headphones on because I was like, that's the universal sign of don't talk to me. Like, mm-hmm. I don't want to engage right now. And I went to the checkout, put my stuff down, and the person tapped me on my headphones. The cashier was like, I love your overalls. And I went, what? Like, I moved them to be like, what did you say to me?
Did they actually tap your headphones?
They tapped my headphones and was like, I have something to say. I was like, oh, maybe this is rude. Like, maybe they had like something legitimate to tell me. And they were just like, I like your overalls. It was like 90 degrees that day. I was wearing corduroy overalls, like pretty heavy. It was not weather appropriate. But she was like, is it hot? And I was like, I'm sweating. Like, yes, it is. But like, this is what I chose to wear today. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And there was a line behind me and she held me up as I was like going out the door. I was like grabbing the bags to leave and she was still trying to talk about my overalls and where I got them from. And I was like, bye, like trying to run out.
That's fair. To be fair though, I did like those overalls. I'm enjoying this. But we should go back to general remarks on residency. So like general remarks, like was there anything that surprised you about residency? Was there anything that you wish you knew before you came? Like that type of stuff. Or were you just like so prepared? Like you're like, I got this.
I was not prepared. Like I told you, I didn't even have a place to live. I did not prepare anything for residency. I feel like it was good that our orientation, specifically for our program, was like 6 weeks. So I feel like it was a lot of time to kind of like get oriented and prepared. I think at the beginning it was definitely like everyone's priority first was like testing, getting licensed, and like, but also everyone would tell you like, this is the best time of your life. Like you're going to have no free time later. So like, I feel like the advice I got at the time was like, make sure that like you prioritize like studying and but also like having fun at the same time. Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
Which is hard.
It is hard. I think, so you like took that advice and I'm assuming that was kind of like your impression, like going in, like it would be a lot of work.
Yeah, I think everyone tells you that residency is going to be a lot of work. And I think that that's true and also somewhat program dependent as well. Some of them will like genuinely work you to the bone. Mm-hmm. And I feel like UC Davis is not one of those. Are we allowed to mention? Okay. Sorry, I didn't know if this was like brand sponsored. Can't say.
No, we're fine. I should have actually like specifically said that Lydia is from the acute care track program at UC Davis. So any questions related to that?
Yeah, we're having an open house. Time to advertise.
We are approaching open house season. So for those wishing to apply for residency, we'll catch you at the open house or at mid-year. Our program will be there. That is on behalf of our recruitment chairs.
Correct.
Extra
work. Put the link there. Put the QR code to sign up. Woo! Editing Alina. Make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I felt kind of similar. I had my appies in Sacramento, so I already was a little bit more familiar with the area and also with the institution itself. But coming in, obviously, like not knowing who the rest of my co-residents were. Well, majority of them were like still like a lot of them were still UCSF, but I was a little bit nervous to meet everyone else who was coming in. I don't think I expected us to like get along as well as we all did at the beginning. But I think like everyone like kicked it off pretty well. Very like cordial to begin with, but I think as the year has gone along, which I mean, only 3 months, like we've all become a little bit unhinged, but I think I appreciate that. That's what kind of surprised me the most coming into residency is that, at least for our program, I think it allows us to have that balance between like work deadlines and also just like hanging out with each other and low-key like fooling around a lot, which I don't think should be like what you take out of this, because all programs are different. And I think if you're like on a specific rotation that's maybe more demanding than others too, like you're going to have less time. So like take it with a grain of salt. But I think for like us and like some of our other co-residents, like we've found pretty good balance, I think, between that. So not something that surprised me coming into residency and like so far along the year. I also didn't expect licensing to take up so much time, or to like weigh so heavily on people. And I think like even now, like as we're approaching the end of the first quarter, like some people still haven't heard back. And it's still kind of like a hanging like cloud, I think, over everyone's head. So I think it's just something that everyone has to go through though. And like you'll eventually get your license and move on with residency, but it just took up like so much time. And I think as a cohort, like our cohort is I think we're very like emotionally connected and aware in some ways. So I think when like one person wasn't feeling right at any given day, like the rest of the class kind of like feels that too. And so it's just a lot of like emotions built up sometimes.
Yeah. I feel like, kind of going back to the first impressions, I feel like you being like part of UCSF and knowing the area and some of the people that you match with, you probably had like expectations already going into it, versus like I did not know anyone / like I didn't even really like look people up, to be honest. I knew some of them where I was like, oh, I recognize you from my interview day. Because Chano and Lindy were both on. Sorry, no names.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I never know what I'm allowed to say.
No, you can say anything you want.
Okay. But yeah, we had 2 residents that were on my interview day. So I was like, oh, I recognize you. And that was like basically the extent of it. Whereas like one girl did her presentation on horseback riding. So I was like, horse girl. And then another one did his on like his journey to UC Davis. And I was like, oh, so you like UC Davis? ? And that was all I knew.
Impressions. Very deep.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you take things very like just as it comes. So I guess like some of the questions that I originally like prepared for you, I feel like may not apply, because I feel like you're just so like you have such a like a free spirit in some ways.
I think that's somewhat fair, that some of it is like I can't stress about it until it's happening. But feel your emotions. Prepare well.
That's general advice for life in general. So that, I think, actually is a pretty good segue into kind of like another topic I wanted to talk about. So we kind of talked about like general first impressions of like residency, which for you was exciting. And like, what was your first impression of UC Davis?
Of UC Davis? I did rank UC Davis number 1. On match day, I cried, but not for tears of joy. I was really stressed. And I feel like I had like 2 top 2 ones and I was going back and forth, and I ended up like flipping a coin to decide. And so I feel like I would have cried regardless of the outcome. And I put UC Davis first. Part of it was luck. Part of it was I think my other option was like East Coast, and it was going to be like brutal. They ask you a lot. I already knew going into that one that it was like a lot of work. And so I was like, well, I heard that UC Davis is like slightly chiller with it. That their like requirements are a little bit less, that they like have like a really good PTO policy, and so they value like wellness and making sure that you have like enough time to yourself. And so that was like definitely part of a contributing factor. But on day of, I was like, oh, did I choose wrong and like decide that I wanted to do, like, chose the easy way out basically, and was like, oh, I actually don't want to do hard work, and that's why I'm coming here. And so when I matched, I like had the like panic moment.
I mean, granted, like, grateful to have matched, and UC Davis was also my first choice, but I kind of struggled a lot during my APPE year, and I think as like a student, you feel like you're walking on eggshells a little bit more, just to like make an impression or like not make a bad impression, and like plus knowing that I was going to come back to the same institution where like it's the same preceptors, same like people that I saw as a student. Like, I didn't know what kind of impression I had left as a student. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking. And also, like, as you mentioned, different expectations. Like, I felt like going in, if I had the same rotation as I did as a student, like the expectations would be higher, which actually has not been the case. And I think I've been able to come out of my last rotation, which was cardiology, with like a really positive outlook. Like, I think I did grow a lot comparing to when I was a student. So that was nice. But I think that initial, like the whole match process and match result was very scary. And I did have like some initial like, oh, like, is this right? Did I do the right thing? So I echo that.
Yeah. I feel like it's scary because they just give you one choice and it's like, all right, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, now I just feel locked in, which I know is what it's supposed to be, but it's still scary at the time.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like traditional jobs, you would like apply to multiple and then you'd get offers back. And so you'd have like the opportunity to sit and choose. But I guess that part is mainly decided during like interview season and not the match day. So just a different process.
Yeah. We chose a very different field. I guess could be also like a more touchy, emotional topic, but kind of like some struggles and challenges that you might have faced during residency so far. And I know like for you, maybe a lot of that was like front loaded with like moving and stuff, but like this could be anything, like struggling with like time management, maybe like imposter syndrome, which I know like I struggled a lot with coming in, or even just like navigating like a new hospital system.
I think, yeah, definitely navigating a new health system. I like was a Cerner user before coming here, and this is like an Epic institution. And so part of it was like a learning curve of being like, I don't even know what button to click to find what I need. So I was like, okay, well, I might know that this drug needs like this, that, the other monitoring, but like, I just don't know how to get there. And so it was definitely like a little frustrating at the beginning to be like, everything takes me like 2 times as long. If you want me to find like a bank level, I like am spending like 8 million clicks to try and get there. So I feel like that was more of like a personal thing where it's like, I'm slow. Like, this is like weighing on me that like I have not like picked this up fast enough. And yet like, I feel like that's just part of learning, is that it's going to take time and nothing's going to be like instant. But I think I wanted that like instant gratification of being like, got it, which like just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Especially so like UC Davis, we use Epic, which is a very different platform. So I get it. They gave us like this whole like 8-hour training day on how to use Epic, but like sitting there for 8 hours to like learn a program when we like didn't have our accounts necessarily like set up yet was also challenging and difficult. So, you know, kudos to you though. Look at her, like she like knows how to navigate Epic so well.
I still have those students like teach me all the time how to do things.
That's right.
It's baby steps.
Baby steps. Let's see. For me, definitely challenge. Let me think. Challenge struggles. I feel like there's so many.
Yeah, I was like, which one and what area should I be choosing?
You can talk about anything, honestly. Like, I feel like for me, it was maybe like a little bit less so of like navigating the system, because like I already had a year at UC Davis. So that definitely like came as like a benefit for me. But then it was more like my first check-in with my RPD, actually I guess RPC, they asked like what I was like struggling with, and I was like, oh, imposter syndrome. And he was like, do you want to unpack that? I was like, I just feel like it's like always that step forward when you move on to a new chapter of your life, and now you have like new expectations, new responsibilities. And like, even as a student, I was like, I feel like I didn't learn anything. And now I'm studying for like board exams to become licensed, which also made me feel kind of incompetent, because I'm like having to relearn everything that I was supposed to have learned in didactics during school. So like just the thought of like, okay, like now very soon after licensing, like I have to be able to like verify orders and be confident about my like clinical recommendations. And that's sole decision. Well, it's not really a sole decision, because like you still have your team to like agree with that or not, but your decision as a pharmacist still plays like a significant role in a patient's care. And so I think that whole aspect's just scary, and I think it's valid to have imposter syndrome. But it was something that my RPC was like, let's unpack that, because like going forward, especially, I think if I want to go into admin, I need to be confident and really express like my decisions and every action that I do confidently. So that was something that I struggled initially with, but I think with, of course, like the cohort support, and also like, I do feel like the preceptors here are very understanding and very supportive too. So they've really slowly guided and like molded my way of thinking in some ways.
That's fair. Yeah. I feel like imposter syndrome has been brought up like a lot in healthcare and pharmacy, especially. I know, at least for me, when I was like verifying my first order, I was like, this is terrifying. And it was like bow reg, like something where I was like, you could probably take four tablets in one sitting and you would be fine. And we were giving like half the amount, you know? So I feel like I feel like a lot of people struggle with that.
I think something else too, probably like the longitudinal projects. For my program track, I feel like we have like a little bit less hand holding. Like, I don't want to say like hand holding, but like I feel like I didn't really know what the deadlines were like going in. We just kind of like were given a spreadsheet saying like, okay, this quarter of the year you have like your monograph due. This quarter of the year, like this is your grand rounds, which is like a presentation that we have to give for pharmacists to attend, and they get CE credit for that. But it was just like all of our longitudinal projects assigned by quarter, and like we knew nothing else about it. So for me, like when I first started, I was kind of like, okay, like, so when do I know exactly what I'm doing for like my grand rounds? When do I know exactly what I'm doing for like my monograph or MUE? And I still don't really know. But definitely I think like balancing that, because I tend to plan ahead. Like I plan ahead by like a month usually. Like I'm thinking about like, okay, if I have this due like in the next month, like I should get started on it now. I think that part was hard to adapt to initially. And then on top of that, I started like MBA classes relatively early for my program, which kind of surprised me, but that was just like more added work and more hours on top of just like studying for board exams and whatnot. So I think that time management was a bit of a challenge for me when I first started.
Mm-hmm. And I think I got warned about that beforehand as well from like the previous residents when I was like applying. They were like, yeah, UC Davis is really good, but like they give you almost so much freedom that it is kind of like you do everything on your own time, and therefore like it does require more time management.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I have a specific like answer on how to do it properly because I feel like we're all still learning. But if any of the listeners have advice, shoot it our way. I need it. This is actually a cry for help.
We're supposed to give you advice.
But if you can give me advice on this, I'd love to hear it. Does Notion work for you? Is Asana good? Like,
Asana's it's the first time I've heard of Asana coming to UC Davis. I didn't know about it before. I'll just like make my to-do list and like check it off on like Google Calendar. But I live by Google Calendar. That would be my advice for you.
Oh, sorry. Everyone uses Teams here. And so I have to be an Outlook calendar girl.
Why not both?
Because I'm not going to log into Google and Teams.
Okay, that's fair.
Sorry.
I just give myself a lot of extra work. Like I have one tab, it's like Google Calendar, and then I have like Outlook Calendar. But the way I separate it, like Outlook Calendar, work stuff. Google Calendar, like personal stuff, plus like MBA stuff. I just don't want to mix it, but that's just personal preference.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point.
To each their own. But yeah. I think you bring up a good point though, where UC Davis does give a lot of like freedom. And so I guess like take that as like advice and also caution, like coming into residency, like be prepared to put in the work if you don't want it to pile up on you. But I guess like everyone eventually like figures out their own way of doing things and getting things done. And so it's really at the end of the day, like whatever works for you, as long as you don't burn out in the process.
Yeah. And I think for some of it is you really can put the bare minimum into residency and make it through. Like, I'm not saying that that's what you should do. However, like, I think it can be done like that. Are you going to get like the most out of it? Absolutely not. Like are you going to be a better clinician at the end of it? Maybe slightly, but I feel like a lot of it is how much effort you put in. And so I think part of it is like resident dependent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that. What were we talking about? So we like kind of went back to the topic of challenges with residency. And Lydia actually brought up a really good point. We have a really big cohort of residents. So 22 or 24 of us in PGY1 class, and then like another 22, 24 residents in the PGY2 class. And we're well aware that other programs, people might have like one other co-resident. For us to have so many co-residents, and we like get along. That's my cat. I'm sorry, guys. Is he okay? He's fine. He just wants out. Oh. We're actually pretty lucky. And I think because even though, like, as an example, I was here for a year and, like, already had some connections to begin with, it was still, like, a struggle at first to, like, feel connected and supported, especially since a lot of my, like, core support group is back in SF. And then, like, my family's in San Diego, so I'm, like, the only one kind of in this little pocket in the Bay. Well, we're not really in the Bay Area, but Northern California. So I would say, like, as the year has gone along, like, definitely really lucky to have formed these, like, friendships and connections with people within the class, because we really have people to, like, go through residency with, and, like, we're all in the same boat. Like, we all understand the struggles that we're going through. So that's definitely helped a lot. But it definitely is like, I can see it becoming, it can become like maybe a repetitive thing, especially if like you're from somewhere else, and like your support system is still maybe not like in this area.
Yeah. No, I agree. I feel like it's definitely a universal experience where, no matter what, no matter how far you're coming from, you're probably losing, your social circle, your familial like circle, whatever it is. It's not going to be the exact same as it was when you were in pharmacy school. And so I feel like that's a big change in life adjustment. I know for me, I used to say that pharmacy school was like high school because you took all the same classes with the same people every single day. Mm-hmm. And like we like sat at little tables at our pharmacy school. I feel like even if you liked them or didn't like them, it was kind of like, well, these are your people and you see them every day. Mm-hmm. And now residency and like everyone moving to different places, like it's just a change no matter what, even if you don't move geographically.
That's fair. Yeah. So common experience, I think, no matter where you like end up for residency. We're just lucky that we have a big cohort where I feel like even if like one person like you don't get along with, like you would find someone that you click with. And I think beyond that too, like it is a work environment, like we are professionals, but we're able to connect on like a deeper level and like form like those friendships too, that like outside of work, which I think is very important, at least for like me. I think in a workspace, like I thrive off of those types of connections. So I think just like really lucky. And I think I would call that like a win for us in residency. I think like a big part of that are the people around us. But talking about like wins, I'm sure there's other things that we could pride ourselves and like give ourselves a pat on the back for 3 months into residency. Would you like to share any?
We made it through our first 2 like rotations, which is really exciting.
What were those rotations for you?
Oh, I was on women's health, so labor and delivery plus family med, and behavioral health, so psych stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 2 clinical interests.
How were those first 2 rotations for you?
I think they were good. It was definitely like somewhat of a learning curve, especially since I feel like as a resident, they kind of have expectations for you to be like a little bit more independent. Mm-hmm. And so I remember the first time, like Julie, my preceptor, was like, all right, now go to rounds alone. And I went, where's my adult? Like, I need someone to hold my hand and go with me. And like when I came back, I was like, oh my God, like I went to rounds on my own for the first time. People were like, girl, like, come on, keep up. Like, we've been doing this. And I was like, oh. But yeah, I feel like that was like a big milestone for me to be like, all right. Mm-hmm. I feel like it takes, trust to be like, all right, now go like talk with the medical team and like look at these patients, and gave me definitely more ownership over them. I feel like
I like that. I'm trying to like think, because when you were in like pharmacy school and going through rotations, like was that an expectation for you as a student to like go around by yourself and like talk with the team and the patients on your own?
Like not at all. Ours was very much like you went with your preceptor, and occasionally, like for one of my NICU rotations, the team was so big, like we had 40 something patients. Mm-hmm. And so she was like, all right, split up. But beforehand, we'd always like talk about our recs, and she would like specifically tell me like, these are the recs that I want you to make today. Mm-hmm. I was like, got it. Understood. Just a little robot to like repeat.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. That's interesting. I think, at UCSF, like when I was on Appies at UC Davis, well, I guess maybe it's a Davis thing. I don't know. But I feel like the preceptors were pretty good about like really marking our progress. And we had 6-week rotations. So like that first day of rotation, like we'll sit down and they'll be like, okay, by like end of week 3, like I want you to have like picked up half of the team on your own. And by that time too, usually we would be rounding on our own. That being said, like we always like discuss our recommendations before rounds. But that's like things that we have had to like work up the patient and assess beforehand, and then like go through our preceptor to make sure that like it's a sound recommendation before we like actually speak up and talk to the team about it. But I think that was like really good exposure, because coming in as a resident, like I felt more confident just like going onto rounds by myself, because I've worked with more like difficult teams and attendings and like fellows as a student. And so like as an example, on this cardiology rotation, like some like familiar faces, like I've worked with some of these attendings before last year, but now as like a resident, I'm in this position where like I can even more confidently make my recommendations. And so I think that like that initial experience of rounding on your own, because I remember that as a student, is like scary, but to be able to like see yourself stand in a team and say like, hey, like pharmacist, this is my recommendation. These are my reasons. And for them to like take it and be like, okay, yeah, like pharmacy's right. Or like, let's ask pharmacy about what to do with the antibiotics. Like there's so much trust placed in us. I think it's so cool that we're able to do that. And I'm glad that you have been able to like get that experience and also really like see yourself, hopefully like see yourself like grow as a clinician in that sense, even though it's probably like very scary.
Yeah. And I think part of it might just be like institution differences and like how different schools do it. I know East Coast tends to be more conservative with what pharmacy can and can't do. And so that might also play into like the hierarchical like standard of things where it's like, all right, if it's not coming from like a residence or a real like a licensed pharmacist mouth, like sometimes it's more difficult for attendings, like even med like interns, residents to like take the rec. And so I think part of it might just be like a difference in, you know, practice standards.
That's fair. I mean, of course, like I don't know much about like East Coast and how that works. So I think this is also like another cool aspect of like being able to work with people from different areas of United States. There's a lot of differences in different areas, but I think it's eye-opening. I'm learning new things every day that I didn't know, like Philly culture, but that's a different story. I think like kind of like building along the lines of that, and then like forgive me, I'm probably just like yapping a little bit right now, but because I had final eval today with my cardiology preceptor, and for her, like part of the things that she wanted to work on this quarter with me, and like things that I brought up were like, one, like how comfortable I felt working with different people on the interdisciplinary teams. To like how I could improve on like efficiency in like working up patients in the morning. So I'm not like coming at like 4 a.m. to like work up patients. Like I should be efficient with my time, especially when you are working as a pharmacist in the future. Like you're not coming in at 4 a.m. to like work up your patients. Like you got to do it on the go. And then finally also building on like preceptor skills, because I had a student on this block, and I know you did too. So those are like some areas that we worked on. And I think like genuinely, I did feel like I grew a lot in all those areas. One thing that I think listeners could benefit from hearing too is that sometimes you will run into like attendings, fellows, medical residents who give a lot of pushback against your recommendation. Mm-hmm. And like it can be so frustrating. But at the end of the day, like knowing that you've done your best to give the recommendation and you know like what you recommended was for like the patient, at the end of the day, even if your like recommendations don't get accepted, like I don't think it's something that should discourage you from like, you know, continue to do your job, because at the end of the day, like you've done your best. And this is just how like healthcare works sometimes. But I really appreciated that outlook, because there were cases where I ran into really like tough situations, and it would like take me like 4 days to get to the team and like help them understand that this patient doesn't need antibiotics, and like we're putting them at more of a risk than benefit to like keep the antibiotics on, especially when there's like no objective evidence of like an infection. So like things like that, where like it was really frustrating, but I picked up kind of like that mindset from my preceptor, and like it made me realize that at the end of the day, like I was still doing my job, and I still feel like confident and pretty comfortable like speaking up during rounds to like make my recommendations to the team, even if it might get pushed back. So I think that's just like something that anyone listening and interested in pharmacy should take away, because you will inevitably come across something like that someday, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And part of the learning process is figuring out where you can push and where it's probably not worth it.
But yeah, I think anyone who is going through the licensure process or has already or is like going to like will probably understand that any big exam that seems like it's going to determine your life can feel really scary. And so I think the moment that we like found out we like passed, it was like a really big moment. And I think for our class too, like since we're so emotionally connected, is like everyone shares in that excitement. So I think that's definitely like a big win. And I think to everyone who has gone through that, I don't know. I think just like definitely got to give yourself a pat on the back for that. We've come a long way. For sure.
I think it's also difficult because the exam itself is so random in terms of questions and stuff that I don't think it's like a true reflection of whether you can or can't be like a good clinician. Like it's definitely not, the content of it doesn't necessarily line up with anything in particular.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. It feels like the lottery.
Yeah. And I think also the CPJE in particular is like notoriously known for being hard. And I think someone mentioned this where she was like, why is it even like 90% clinical and 10% law? Like that's what the NAPLEX is for. So they were saying that it feels like California's like, well, the NAPLEX isn't like a good enough clinical exam, so we're going to give you another one, a harder one.
It's been like a controversy for a really long time in California, whether we want to get rid of CPJE or not. I don't know where like that decision is at, but I think like having gone through it myself too, like definitely agree. And also really bad like test taker. It's sometimes it really does feel like a random luck of the draw. Like what you're tested on, like is it really accurately like testing your clinical skills? Probably not. So I think to be able to like get past that and not have to worry about it, like move on and actually like work on being a good clinician. So yeah. Good job. licensed pharmacist.
Yay!
Yay! Yeah.
Exciting but scary.
Verify's first order. It's bowel regimen.
Oh, no, I specifically didn't want that. I think the first med I verified was a antibiotic.
Oh! Wait, I thought it was a bowel regimen this entire time.
No, I
Is that someone
specifically
else?
avoided bowel reg.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I can't say that. That's so lame. Bowel reg?
My first order will probably be like, I don't know, actually. What's like a really lame order to verify?
NS bolus.
Yeah,
It's
an
a
NS
fluid.
bolus. I'll be like, okay, done. Actually, like, look into it. Maybe, like, look into it. But
Look at the rate. Look if it's appropriate.
is it the right patient? You know, the 8 rights of the patients. Know that. Important. Med safety. Yeah. We'll see. Maybe next podcast I'll talk about the first order I verified.
Woo!
Who knows? I think we're at a good point to maybe like round out and talk about things to look forward to in residency. So we finished a quarter. We got 3 more quarters. 3 more quarters to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 more quarters to go. Woo! But and I'm sure it's gonna be a long year. Some of us are applying for PGY2 early commit within the UC system, so that's coming up this next month. So I'm sure like stress levels may be a little bit higher, just like a little more workload too. But I mean, I'm looking forward to the year. I think that we'll continue to build on like really good memories with each other and with the cohort. So, what are you looking forward to?
I feel like the years really flew by. I feel like it's kind of hard to imagine that we're like already a quarter in / like almost like they're asking us to decide for next year. It feels like I just got started.
Yeah.
And so I think trying to enjoy all the little moments of like hanging out with our co-residents and friends at this point. And like, because you never know, like if next year people are going to go to different places and like they're, you know, everyone's going to have different goals and aspirations. And so I feel lucky that I get to be there for, you know, to watch it happen, but also like to not take that time for granted, because by next year, like everyone could be doing their own thing as well. So making sure that I spend the time and making sure that I have like budgeting the time for it, so that
I appreciate that sentiment. And I think, and again, like, I think it shows that at any like point in life, like you need a strong support system. And so, I think for me too, like that's something that I'm mainly looking forward to. I think besides like, obviously like my programs combine PGY1 and PGY2. So like, I know I'm going to be at UC Davis for another year. And I'm looking forward to my second year because that's where like I really dive into the more like administrative rotations and like work. I pick up like my own service line to manage. So I think that'll be really cool. More like professional growth for me. But I think on the personal side, like continuing to work on myself as like a person and also just like building those relationships with people around me. That's definitely something that I am looking forward to. I think maybe a little bit scary just because my own like personal journey has been like windy. And so there's always like questions that I ask myself about like where I'm at with my progress and like where I want to be. But I think like this is the year where I see myself like growing a lot. So I'm excited. And then other than that, like rotation wise, I'm sure we'll see growth in ourselves as clinicians. as the rotations come by. And I think probably also find like specific interests too within pharmacy. I know like you already kind of like came in with some like idea, but maybe you'll find something like that you'll really love and like know like this is what I want to do. So we've kind of briefly gone over like our impressions, things that we've learned, some challenges that we've experienced and like overcome our first quarter of residency. It was a fun episode. I thought it was a fun episode just because like no structure. We just speak our mind. We are giving like our most honest thoughts to you guys. But thank you again for joining for another episode of this podcast. Again, like if you have any comments, feedback, send them our way. Find us on social media. Like and subscribe if you liked this podcast. And yeah, I look forward to seeing y'all at our next episode.